And now that we've got the guitar cleaned, next step is to take the strings out. And as I mentioned before, these are Diodarials. There you go. As I mentioned before, these are Diodarials. Never know how to pronounce this. So D apostrophe A D D A R I O. I guess it's an Italian name. Diodario. Nice, good guitar strings. Very well known brand name. On the package here, it gives you color coding of each string. So the E string is silver. It's the first string, that's the high E. Then the B is purple, and the G is green, and the D is black. It says it right underneath, black. And then A is red, and the low E is brass colored. So it gives you the name right underneath, and the string number, string name. So we take them out one by one. So it's a good thing they're color coded because they're hard to tell. It's hard to tell each individual string when they're all silver colored. So the tip, what I was referring to in the colors, I refer back to the chart here, is that the first one is silver, that's your high E, and the second one is purple, that's your B string. So if you notice here, one is purple and one is silver. So we want the silver one because that's our first string to attach. That's the high E. So you just unwind it and do a good job of winding these together. Okay, so we got our silver string, silver tip string. And that goes through the back of the guitar. So you gotta make sure that you line it up the right way. So you want the silver one to go through that hole right there. And you flip it around. And you take, so the knobby part here is going to be what's bracing against the body of the guitar. So you take the thin part, so, and slide it through the body of the guitar. And flip it around. We have it lined up. Pull it up. Oh, there we go. So that back piece is, make sure it's all the way through and held in place right in that bar. There's a hole, so you just make sure it pulls all the way through, and then grab this, line it up, and then there's this little clip, I guess you could call it, right there. So make sure your string goes under that clip, just like that. And then wrap it around once, and then find the hole. Just so it makes a loop. You don't want it too tight, just tight enough. And then once you held it in place, and you turn this counterclockwise, because we turn it clockwise to loosen it. Well, obviously you turn it counterclockwise to tighten it. And it's just the tension of the string holds it in place. And one thing you gotta watch for is make sure that it's up on the post. And just keep turning it until it's in there tight. Oops, it's falling off the side. You don't want to go too tight just yet, because you could end up breaking your string if you turn it up too tight. So you hear that sound? I just know from experience that's still way out of tune, but There's enough tension to hold it in place. So we take our next one, purple one, and that's your B string. And it's the next string up. Just repeat the process. Take the thin part that doesn't have that little knobby on the end and just put it through the next hole up. Just feed it through. And you notice it came right through. Like so. And just pull it up until you feel it stop. And just turn the guitar around to make sure that it's actually held in place, and it's way down in there. You can see the little, not so much on the video, but I can see that the purple one is held in place by this drilled out piece of bar stock. So you just make, it goes on the other side of that clip. So the high E was on this side of the clip. It's popped out. Make sure it's in place. And do the same thing for the B. Make sure that it's held in place by that clip. And then we do the same thing, just wrap it around half the post and then find the hole. And just pass that piece through the hole until there's a little bit of tension, not too much, still in place with the clip. And then I turn it counterclockwise to tighten it up, making sure that the string is around the post. And you can hear that sound. So we know we have a bit of tension, so we make sure that these two strings are held in there. So the B's on that side, the E's on that side. I want the G string, so then on my guide it's green one. The next one is green, which is the G, and the D is the black. So the G and the G and the D string are wrapped together. See the green and the black. So just unwind them, and it should just pretty easily pop out. Really warm down here. Alright, so they've unraveled. I've unraveled the strings. Take my B one, just put the black one on the ground. My G string is green. And notice that green. And then I do the same thing, flip the guitar around, and the next one up. Take the thin part of the thin part of the string, not the knobby. So the thin part goes through, and just feed it through. As you can see, it comes out here, and just feed it right through. And then I flip my guitar around again, just to make sure that it's all the way through, and it is. And this one, there's no clip to hold it in place, it's just on the nut loosely. So then I'll wind it around half away and then through the hole, through the little hole in the post. I'll just give you a close-up view of that. Through the hole on the post. If you can see that pretty well, good. I just, again, pull it so there's just enough tension. Make sure that it's on the right slot on the nut. And then turn it counterclockwise, pull that through. Okay, as it gets a little tighter, then I can slide this, make sure that it's on the right spot in the nut. Just holding it down with my finger so it doesn't fall off again. Okay, that should be tight enough. Again, we don't want to over tighten it, so we don't want to break our string. So the next one up, as I said, was the B for the D string. You notice that little knobby on the end is black. Then we take the thin part, that's what feeds through the bottom of the guitar. So again, I flip it over. The fourth one up, so it's right in the middle. Just find that, make sure it goes through the two holes, and then pull it out. You got to make sure that the strings are in the middle of these parts of your bridge, right? So see the strings is right in the middle of the two posts there, right there and there. And then this one I'm going to do the same thing. Wind it up halfway around through the hole. Make sure it doesn't pass underneath these other strings. There we go. And it's fairly tight. Then I turn it this counterclockwise. Start putting tension on the string. Making sure that it winds up against the post. And I want to hold this one in place like there. The right spot on the nut. And here we go. Turning, 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 turning. And I can see it's getting tighter. Tighter, tighter. The string's making a sound. Again, we don't want to go too far because we don't have our tuner on it, and we want to make sure that we don't break our strings by putting too much tension. So the last two strings I'm worried about are the A string, which is red, and the low E, which is the brass colored one. So if you notice, one is red, one is brass colored. You just unravel them, and they kind of pop out. Just like that. So I've taken the red one, and then I'm going to turn my guitar around, and it's the fifth one up, fifth hole on the back, almost to the top, and take the thin part and put that through. So now I do the same thing, just string it along and then flip it around once, turn it around once, and then I'm going to just pass it through the hole on the post. You can see it. And I just pass it through. So. Just pull it tight enough, but not too tight. Like that. And then this one's a little thicker, so you gotta keep tension on the thin end a little bit longer until it starts wrapping. And make sure that it stays on the post. That one nearly flipped off, so I just hold it in place with my other thumb. Tightens up. You can see it tightening against the post. And like that. It's still really loose. And I keep flicking it until you can see how many times it's wound. Like hold it the other way around. You notice the high E is barely were wrapped around a couple of times. The A string is wrapped around quite a few times. And you'll see that the E one, the low E, is even more. It just takes a little bit more attention to hold it in place because it's a much thicker string. So the last one, as I mentioned, is brass colored. Right there, that's the knob. And then I take the thin end. I want the thin end. Flip my guitar around again. It goes through the 6th hole. Sure it's in place. Everything's in place. Good stuff. And then same idea. I just bring it to the end and then wrap it around once and then just tighten it up a bit. Hold everything in place. Make sure this part that I just pushed through is on top. That's about as far as I can go. And then just start turning it counterclockwise, and we'll tighten up. Move my thumb out of the way. Just hold it in place so it doesn't pop off the tuning post, whatever you call it. Capstan, I think is the proper term for it. I know it's not tuning post, but it's a little post on the end here. I just turn it until I see a good amount of tension. As I was mentioning, you see a lot more turns on the low E compared to the high E. That's low E right there. Turn it a bit more. Alright, so we got some sound. And the other thing is, before we go any further, make sure that they're all in place on your nut. That's the nut part right there. Make sure that they're all in their grooves, because there's a groove for each string. Make sure they're all in their right groove, and then make sure that these two little strings didn't pop out of this clip on the end, so they're still in place, and everything seems to be in order. So the next step is to tune it. And then one thing I've noticed is that, not something off my shelf, is that it takes a while for the strings to actually get broken in. So you'll tune it once and then it'll go really out of tune soon after. So I don't cut my strings right away because I don't like to leave these bits off. That's why I have a wire cutter. But I'll tune it once and then let it sit for a couple hours and then come back and trim the strings down. So again, I take my clip-on tuner, put it on the end. Alright, welcome back. So I've let the guitar sit for a couple hours, just let this string stretch out. Because as I mentioned before, the strings, they pull a lot of tension on the neck of the guitar, so it really it's really hard to tune at first after you've changed the strings. So what I like to do is just pull on them a bit. I've learned this from a guitar teacher I've had in the past, where I just take the strings and kind of pull on them a little bit, stretch them out even more. So next thing is that you have to retune it one more time. So starting from the first string on the bottom, the first string, which is the high E, make sure that it's in tune. It's a little bit off. So now we see that it's right here, right in the middle, and then we do the next string up, which is the B string. That one's okay, and then we go up to the G string. That one's definitely off, and then we see it's right in the middle, the little turquoise arrow, and then we do the D string, the 4th string. That's the next string up, and there we go, looking good. And then the A string again, that's a little bit flat, bring it up, and there we go, right in the middle. You see that it's doing okay. And then we do the top string, the 6th string, which is the low E, and then we see again the arrow in the middle, and then we play this Do a E chord and a G. That's an A major. So everything's sounding pretty good. Then I can proceed to cut the strings. So I just use a regular pair of wire cutters that I got at a hardware store. And then you just snip them off. I try not to snip them off too short. I like to have a little bit of extra. So I leave about maybe an inch. That's maybe a little bit too long, but I just cut a little bit more off. There we go. Leave about an inch. Maybe the length of that fingernail there. And cut it off here. There. Leave it a little bit on top and proceed down. And there we go. And then you just throw those away. No need to keep them. And then one more, a couple more. And now, I mean, a lot of pliers will have wire cutters built in, but I find actual wire cutters work so much better. So just a sharp end to cut your strings or cut other wire, or if you do any electrical work. See, it went out of tune just by doing that, so I have to retune the whole thing. And guitars are really kind of finicky. You get right down to it. I always try to tune from down to up. It's just a little bit easier. So there's G. The D is looking good. It's a little bit sharp. Turn it down and back up again. And then we'll do the A again. That's a little bit sharp too. And then the E, low E. And again, then you try to do string by string. See, this guitar even sounds good when it's not amplified. And then later on I'll plug it in and let it rip. So you just put your patch cord in through here. And one thing I just got recently, because right now it's just a couple days after Christmas. It's actually New Year's Day today. I got this little miniature amp from Hughes and Kettner, which I will do a review on a little bit later on. But Hughes and Kettner is a famous amplifier company. Alex Lifeson from Rush was famous for using Hughes and Kettner at one time, and they make really good amps, and they make little practice amps like those. I used it to record a song. It sounded great. It has a line out, so you can go directly into your computer. They also have pedal boards, floorboards that sound just like that. So that do the same thing, have a bunch of different sounds, and of course their tube amps are phenomenal. They're one of the best amps in the world. So it's a German company. I'm going to do a review on my little amp a bit later on down the road. So for now, I hope you enjoyed this session of In-Tune Guitar Academy on how to change strings, or my take on how to change strings. This was changing strings on an electric guitar. Maybe later on I'll do the acoustic guitar, because my acoustic guitar needs to change. I need to change the strings on the acoustic guitar as well. So until next time, I hope keep on practicing, and we'll see you again on In-Tune Guitar Academy.